Um, yeah, I think I'm ready.
Yeah.
Let's record.
Yeah.
Good. Well, welcome everybody to this information session. It's nice to see so many people, which you can count on one hand, to show up, so that's really good. And luckily we have people back home who can watch this, and hopefully the energy and positiveness will convey. So what I'm going to do today, three things. First off, I'll try to give some tools to you to start and maintain the creative process. With creative process, I mean writing a thesis, because it's the first time, or at least it's the time or the moment that you start creating something on your own, making something cool of it. Second off, and that's the most important thing of this session, is that I try to convey the message that it's very enjoyable to work on your thesis, and how to keep it enjoyable and go on with it. And well, of course, do that through inspiring people. That's the hope, of course. So, what to expect concretely, I'll first talk a bit about myself, then about my thesis, then I have a little interaction with the vision part, give some reminders about what you have to know or what you should remember about yourself before starting. Of course, the challenges should not be unnamed while writing a thesis. I heard that some people had trouble with finding their topics, so I'll also try to give some help with that, although I'm not really the expert in getting topics because I was very lucky in that field. Then how to start the creative process, so how do you get into the mood, the spirit to get to work on your thesis. Then some anchors on how to enjoy this process. Then again some tools to see how a thesis day works, or how a thesis day could look like. And in the end I'll answer some questions. So first, who am I? Well, I'm Lars Koenig. I did a major in social sciences. I was a former treasurer of Extramuros and I did many other things, but that's not really important right now. And I graduated in 2015 with distinction. What did I graduate in? Well, with my thesis, it was called Like My Subjectification and Exploitation. Actually, I come to remind myself that I, for the people who are interested, brought some material which I used during writing my thesis, which first off is my final draft and my actual thesis. So you can look into these files to think or get to understand how it will look like eventually and how to get there, as well as some material. So I have one map with all the sources I had, which was a lot, it was a literature study. And also I visualized the book Verbal Babblings by Michel Foucault. Eventually the thesis was, and I'll just give it, pass it around. So what was my thesis about? Well, not simply, I want to say simply, but it's not simple. It's about the manifestations of neoliberalism in social media use. What does that mean? Well, what I did was I combined, or I looked to two different scientific fields, which were the political economical theories, which have been produced the last few decades, as well as in the last decade studies about social media studies. So how do people behave in social media, and what possible explanations are for these kind of behaviors. And I put these two together. So I took the political economic theory of neoliberalism and looked at how this influences in social media, how it mediates through in people's use. I'll go a bit more into that. No, I don't go into this later. And the reason why I took the book of Michel Foucault, because he talked about how this transition can be, how can something which is on this big abstract level of economic political theory mediate through a person. But I'll not go into depth with this. My final grade for this thesis was an 8. My two main critique points were, first off, my APA wasn't up to notch, so I would recommend everybody to look into how to do that again, because in the final process of writing a thesis, that's something that could stay behind. And second off, I used theories from my supervisor and second reader in a very correct way, but also in some parts in not so correct ways, so I should have been more on top of that. But okay, now for my thesis, it was a literature study, so it's important. I did not do my own empirical research. I did my own research, but not empirical. I should have changed that. So that's enough about my thesis. Vision, yes. I want to ask everybody to close their eyes, also the ones who are back home. Okay, all close your eyes. I want you to visualize and see yourself graduating, being in this nice robe, having this nice, I don't know how it's called, the red shawl, and that you're there in this moment, that your name's being called, and that that you are heard and told, well, your name, and then you did such a good job for the last 3 years, and that's why you graduate. And think about all the proud faces surrounding you, your parents, your friends, and just being in this moment. That you have this idea of, that's what I'm gonna do at the end of this year, this is what I'm doing it for. And think about how proud you are of yourself and how you did so well and that you got such an amazing thesis done that you own it all. And this feeling, I hope that you get this positive feeling, this idea of, yeah, this is what I want to achieve. Remember this positive energy, because this is what you're going for, and this is where you'll end up eventually. This is what you will be at the end of this year when you graduate, so you can open your eyes again. So I want you to remember this, because actually for me, what drove me the strongest in my thesis writing process and in my studies was that in my second year, I was a board of examiners, and we went to the graduation ceremony of that year, so actually the people who graduated in my second year. And there was this one guy who gave the valedictorian speech, so the final speech of, how can I say that, of the year. It's a very cool thing to do. And those people who graduated with distinction, they got a rose, and they were called out like with distinction. And then I thought, I want that too. I also want to stand there and give a valedictorian speech, and also I want to have this rose, you know, just as a nice, like as a proof or just this great ending of 3 years of my studies. And with this thought, this idea, I went into my last semester thinking, okay, I want to graduate, I want to be with distinction. And eventually, I succeeded, thankfully, and also, it was the first picture, I think, I was allowed to do the valedictorian speech, which was a great honor, of course. So I think, and I don't think I would have managed if I didn't have this visualized goal, because at the end, before the last resits, I got an average of 7.48, which was enough for distinction, but the thing was that I did graduate, of course, because I had everything with a sufficient grade, but I still had resits, and I thought, I want to have distinction. So I just did the resits and eventually aced both exams to eventually get to this point, to get this rose, and it felt, yeah. And I want this good feeling of achieving something, I also want you to have this, so that's why I'm telling this story. But to do this, you have to remind yourself of a few things about yourself. Which first is that in these last 2.5 years, you already proved yourself many times over that you can do this, that you have the knowledge, you have the skills, you're not here for no reason. So always when you get this thought about, oh, I think I can't do this, or I think I can't do that, it's a big lie you tell yourself. So I just want to remind yourself, all of you, that you can do it, and you're made to do it. Now, one very important aspect of writing a thesis is to set priorities. This for me was a very important part, and actually I think I wouldn't be able to have managed my thesis if not one of my best friends reminded me of this part, is that your number one priority right now should be finishing your studies. This is your number one priority. If like random emails, Facebook messages, your girlfriend, boyfriend wants something from you, you have to be able to say, no, my thesis is the most important part. In my case it was that I was going through a very rough time personally wise. And I was like, okay, but my number one priority is my thesis right now. These things, I'll work on them later. And this is so important that you do this, because it's necessary to take yourself serious. Oh, that's my next one. Oh, it isn't here yet. It wasn't there. To at least take yourself serious and say, I'm worth it to get this thesis done, to get this final great achievements like you have already visualized before. Another thing, life is great, so enjoy it. I guess most of you people, at least people I see here, I know that they had a great time on their exchange, for example, or otherwise. So I don't have to tell you that, but just for those who don't know, life is great, enjoy it. Also, one thing you have to understand is that, and that's a quote I always use from my hitchhiking, is that every journey is walked one step at a time. You have to know that it now feels like the thesis is one big hegemonic project you have to achieve, or have to, like I always, as a metaphor I'll use later, it's like, it feels like it's this mountain you have to climb. But you have to understand that you do it once at a time. You do it by every little reading you do, by every little thought you make, every small step counts. And when you remind yourself of this, then it isn't anymore this big thing you have to suddenly have to grasp to. And because you know you can do it, because you already proved yourself many times you can do it, writing a thesis isn't anymore this big mountain you have to climb, but it's just a hill you have to roll down from. Because the final destination, you already know you're going to be there. You're going to be there at the end of this year, graduating, being proud, being good, positive energy. So that's what I will try to say with this. But this very interesting road isn't without challenges. First one being stress. I want you to all know that you will get stressed, because there will be deadlines, there will be things that maybe not work out as you want it to be. But I want you to know that the enemy is not that this thing you have to do, because you can do it. I mean, we all know you can do it. The enemy is the stress or the belief that you can't do it. This is the thing you have to take away. It's not the thing that you have to do it to take away, because you can do it anyway. What was I want to add to this part? Well, it doesn't matter. It's it's really important that if you find yourself in a stressful situation, that the first thing you have to work on is try to get yourself into a more calm, how can I say that, in a more relaxed way. You can't work on things properly when you're stressed out and you don't know what to do, because something that somebody told me that was very interesting is that for some people, panicking, like being stressed, is a way to show that you care. Because if you would not be panicking, maybe that means you're not caring enough. But if you panic, then it's like, oh, it means something. But you should know that, and that's more scientifically, that when you stress out and you allow yourself to be stressed and you allow yourself to be panicked, you make a lot of cortisol, which is a stress hormone, which suppresses rational thought. And of course, what you need for a thesis is rational thinking. So that's one thing you have to take away first. It encounters the enjoyment of writing a thesis. Like what I try to say this entire information system is that it's fun, and there shouldn't be anything that takes away this fun. And of course, stressing is unnecessary. I'll go into more tools on how to get into this state of mind that you enjoy it and that you are not susceptible to stress. Of course, another challenge is the temptation to escape. Sometimes in the writing process or in any part of your study, like I said, when this thing that you have to do, when it doesn't work out, it becomes a symbol of, it can become a symbol of your own failing. I don't know how to say that properly. That because it doesn't seem to work out, it seems to prove to you that you're not worthy enough. And this usually, in psychological sense, can make people try to escape. Like, oh, it doesn't work, I don't want to be faced with this. I'll do something else to escape this seemingly reminder I can't do it, but of course that's a lie. Because you can do it, like I say many, many times. And also I will tell you about more things on how to not escape, or not to be tempted to escape. But more on that later. Very short one, actually I added this one on inspiration when I talked to Marianne, because you had trouble, well, because you were reminding me of things that some people have trouble with getting a topic. For this I just can give some tips, because for me I already knew a bit of what I would write about. But whatever. So a topic can be something which is close to your heart, preferably something which you can inspire by during your exchange. For me, this is a picture from Yonsei University in Korea. This is where I got to first get in touch with neoliberalism, this political theory. And I got really intrigued by this, and also it was the first time I got into touch with Michel Foucault. And with this in the back of my mind, it made me curious, like, how does this work and what can we know more about it? And what it was is that coming back from Korea, I actually was first thinking about writing about smartphones, how it affects social cohesion. But what happened was that my supervisor gave me a source about social media studies to first look into what people actually do on their smartphones. And then, when reading this source, I was reminded by what I read back in Korea about neoliberalism, because these what I read about social media seemed to be very similar on what neoliberalism has as a cause, like what neoliberalism causes people to do, and what people are actually doing in social media. They seem to be related. So then I both could use something which was inspired by German exchange, as well as something I found very curious about. And this became like the source from which I could move on all the time, because it was this thing I wanted to know, I wanted to learn more about, where you have these things, I think it's called intrinsic motivation, yes. This is a source which can bring you very far into your thesis writing process. And then, last challenge is to find a supervisor who suits this topic. Well, I was again very lucky. Within, I think, a few hours when I came up, or when I got to know I could write my thesis, I got my supervisor here about it. So some tips for those who don't have a topic yet. Okay, now the core of my, how can I say that, of my presentation. It's starting the creative process. In this slide, I will try to show actually how easy it is, because actually, like I said, we are all feeling like the thesis is a big thing we can't comprehend, but actually we can cut down on a few small things. Because basically you're only doing 3 things. In my case, 3 things. If you're doing own research, you do 4 or 5 things, or well, 4 things in this presentation. First off is reading. Reading is the most important part of your thesis, because it's where your thesis is built up upon. It's like the building blocks.